In today's RTFSC, I want to take a look at a new templating language in Rails called Herb. And what is Herb? Well, it's an HTML aware ERB parsing for Rails. So, what does that mean exactly? Probably the best way to show what that means is to jump into an example. And there's one on the website in the playground. So, if we go to example, if you've worked with a Rails application, you've probably written ERB files where you have these blocks of Ruby, and then inside of that you have HTML. And something you'll notice to the right over here, this is what's new. This is kind of what Herb does that ERB does not do. So essentially, um, Herb is able to go through this string and parse it and understand the semantics of it. It knows like there's a comment here. It knows that there's some Ruby there. It knows that there's an if condition there. So you can write these templates and they're HTML aware. And we can see that being parsed out in the Herb result over here. All right, so another kind of key feature of this is that this parser is error tolerant. So what does that mean? Herb can just like go through the entire file, even if there's errors, and it has to be able to tolerate errors so that it can go through and give you these little squiggle lines. So actually, if you install or if you use Herb with your Rails application, and you are using something like VS Code or I use Zed, which is awesome. If it has a language server, it will highlight these things for you if there's some kind of mismatched tags or some kind of problem going on with it. So that's Herb in a nutshell. Um, it has a lot of more potential than that. I'm not really going to get into that for now, but I think for now, like get excited about the red squiggles. And let's go ahead and start reading some source code. I'm going to start with reaction view here because this thing is actually like um, quite small. So Marco Roth, I'm cloning this right now. Reaction view. All right, we'll open this up in Zed. All right, so if we look at reaction view, we can see here's how you install in your Rails application. Instead of ERB, we're going to slap an H in front of that, and then suddenly they become HTML aware. All right, so if we look at like what is reaction view, this is a very small integration between Herb and Rails. So we have a rail tie here. If you're familiar with rail ties, they do all this integration work. It's like, okay, I have my library over here, it's Herb, and I want to integrate it with Rails. And we can see here, this thing is just registering template handlers, right? So we have Herb, it's registering that. And it looks like it's also registering an ERB handler and intercepting ERB somehow. So let's have a look at these actual handlers. These are the things that um, are actually taking whatever the view file is and evaluating it and getting a response out of it. Template handlers are actually a bit weird whenever you call them. It's actually writing Ruby code that then gets cached and then that gets evaluated. So I'm not really sure where I see that going on here, but let's see if it's in here. Properties. Yeah, so there's the Herb engine. So this is calling out to Herb, and let's see what the ERB integration is doing here. All right, it looks like if it's HTML, it looks like it's intercepting that. This makes sense because you could use .erb for say text files, right? But what this is saying is like, hey, if there's an HTML file, obviously that should be HTML aware, so it's going to intercept just a regular ERB. But if you have something like a CSV or a plain text file or a markdown, it's just going to call up to Rails default. So it can still render text without kind of messing that thing up. All right, I think I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the actual Herb repo itself since I only have like 5 more minutes to go through the rest of the Herb repo. So let's open that up. Probably not enough time to go through this repo, so I'm just going to warn everybody that for a few reasons. Like A, I can see that there's probably some C. Yeah, there's some C code going on here. I'm not familiar with that at all. So this should be fun. This is definitely going to be like the novice view into this. But let's go ahead and see how far I can get in this thing. All right, so we can see we have a language server, a formatter, a linter. There's a lot of tools that you just get now, which is kind of cool. It's going to help you write better ERB templates. And if you run into bugs and all that stuff, um, while you're writing it, this will just help you, I think, ship ERB with less bugs. Now, I guess now would be a fun time to um, put kind of ERB into relation with um, a front end technology I use called Flex. So Flex is completely different than Herb. They're actually complementary to each other in some ways. So Flex, you're building components. Herb is not components. Herb, you could build components with Herb, but it's not strictly components. It's you could just think of it as these HTML files with some Ruby blocks in them. Whereas Flex, you're actually writing Ruby for everything. And we can see that right here. So if you want to check that out and compare it with Flex, go to beautifulruby.com/flex and check that out. For now, though, we're going to jump back into the Herb library, and we're going to see where I can get in 4 minutes with this thing. All right, so since it's a Ruby gem, we're going to start with ERB, herb.erb. See, we have some requirements here. We have what looks like I would expect in any kind of parsing type library. We're going to generate an AST, and that's that thing that we saw in the example where it is the abstract syntax tree. So let's open that up. And I'm sure we're going to see some things in here that show like, hey, what kind of nodes do we have in this thing? So you're basically building up a tree of all the different HTML entities in here. I would imagine that a lot of this parsing is happening in C, just because it's quite fast. So let's keep cruising through here. We have validators. Or actually, let's see what AST is. All right, so AST seemed not a lot of code there, which is fine. It's just an abstract syntax tree. So we have an engine, we have our compiler. This is probably where a lot of the heavier lifting happens. And of course, here we have a lot of, you're just walking the node. So you're feeding a string of ERB into this thing, and this thing's just walking through there. And it's figuring out, oh, hey, we have a comment node here. We have a doc type node, a declaration node, a CData node. So these are all things that if you've worked with HTML, you've probably seen these concepts before, ERB. So this thing is walking that node and generating some output for some other thing to manipulate down the road. And let's see what the validator is doing here. I mean, I guess this thing is just generating errors, right? If it finds something that's invalid, it's going to add some sort of message to that. And those are, I would imagine, the things that are showing up in your IDE saying like, hey, you have some open tags here, things like that. All right, I've got 2 minutes. Let's see, we've got our engine here. There's a lot going on. All right, so there's a lot of Ruby code here that obviously is doing quite a bit of work. So let's see what else we've got here. We have a JavaScript folder as well. It looks like we have a language server, a language service. We have Node in here. That's interesting. I wonder if that's like all of Node or what. But anyway, there's a lot going on here. We have Java. It's not expecting to see Java in here. I'm guessing this is like for JRuby compatibility. That's my best guess. Or I don't know, maybe Herb is like working in Java. I'm not really sure. We have WASM. So there's a ton of different types of source codes going on here. Here's all the C. Let's see if there's like, oh, here's herb.c. All right, so we've got a lot of C code going on here, and it looks like this is dealing with tokens, buffers, and whatnot. So we have a parser. So yeah, I'm just gonna quickly scroll through the C because I don't really know what I'm doing when I'm looking at C. We have a Ruby parser. So it's not really surprising that ERB taps out, or ERB is using C. It has to like efficiently parse all this stuff. I'm not sure what these templates are. Oh, that looks like they're templates, obviously, being used to generate something. I'm not sure what. Sorbet, that's like Ruby types examples. So I only have 30 seconds left, but there's obviously a ton going on in this library. I feel like I just scratched the surface, but check it out. Marco has put a lot of work into this. Um, I would not be surprised if this replaces ERB. It's just a better ERB if you're working with HTML. Um, so if you're building web applications using Rails or something else, like it probably just makes sense to use this. For component libraries, I do highly recommend that you check out Flex. I do know that Marco and Joel have conversations about how those things can integrate. And I would imagine as well, um, there will be some integration between this and Vue components. So the bigger picture is the front end story for Rails is about to get a lot better with this. If this shipped in a future version of Rails as a default, it would just automatically be like a better developer experience for most Rails developers. See you next time.